Let's get started with our first news. Joe Rogan has just revealed some interesting chatter about Alex Pereira's possible next opponent, and it could mean a serious move into the heavyweight division. Recently, Alex Pereira was heavily rumored to face Jon Jones on the massive UFC White House card. However, that speculation cooled off quickly after Pereira posted that the White House fight was a no-go. That immediately sparked questions about whether he still plans to move up to heavyweight at all. Now, according to Joe Rogan, the move may still be very real. Rogan explained that he has heard consistent chatter suggesting Pereira's next fight would indeed be at heavyweight. More specifically, the name circulating is Ciryl Gane. Rogan admitted he hasn't personally spoken to Dana White about the matchup, but he also made it clear that the idea is far from illogical. At the moment, Pereira is reportedly weighing around 240 pounds, possibly even more. Rogan emphasized that Pereira has the kind of power that can absolutely translate to heavyweight, saying he can knock out heavyweights without question, and that his power is on another level. With Tom Aspinall expected to undergo eye surgery, that situation could sideline him long enough for the UFC to find Ciryl Gane a new opponent. That timing lines up perfectly with the chatter Rogan is hearing. Even without direct confirmation from Dana White, Rogan's deep connections inside the UFC make this rumor hard to ignore. Meanwhile, Pereira recently shared footage of himself lightly sparring with his son. The clip suggests that the foot fracture he suffered against Magomed Ankalaev back in October is nearly fully healed. This makes his decision to step away from the White House card even more interesting. It's possible contract negotiations didn't sit right with him, especially considering how huge that event is. Pereira has publicly clashed with the UFC before, even once claiming his social media was hacked after criticizing the promotion. As things continue to develop, this situation remains one to watch very closely. Move on to another news. Robert Whittaker could be making a major career shift heading into 2026. Right now, there is still no clear answer on what his next UFC fight will be. The last time we saw Whittaker inside the octagon was back in July, and unfortunately, he is coming off a tough two-fight losing streak. Those losses came against RDR and Khamzat, putting him in a difficult position within the middleweight division. If you've been following the channel closely, you'll remember that Whittaker called out Sean Strickland in October, aiming for a fight on the White House card. However, those plans fell apart after Strickland went on to book a bout with Anthony Hernandez. Since then, Whittaker has remained quiet until now. On a recent episode of the MMA Arcade podcast, Whittaker sat down with Johnny Rose and shared some big updates about his future. First, he revealed that he is targeting a return to the UFC sometime around mid-2026. More importantly, he admitted that he is seriously considering moving up to the light heavyweight division. Whittaker explained that he has been spending time developing new skill sets and experimenting with different approaches to his game. He said he isn't fully locked into middleweight anymore and is openly playing with the idea of competing at 205 pounds. According to Whittaker, he feels like a bigger guy now and isn't overly concerned about the usual criticisms regarding height and reach. He pointed out that most of his opponents at middleweight already had height and reach advantages over him anyway, so moving up doesn't feel like a drastic change. In his words, everyone has always been taller. Everyone has always had longer reach, so why not try something different? While he made it clear that this is a decision for his future self to finalize, the idea is very real. The MMA community quickly reacted to his comments. Some fans noted that even welterweights often have longer reach than Whittaker, mentioning fighters like JDM, Usman, and even Buckley. Others believe the light heavyweight division is one of the weakest in the UFC, and that Whittaker's skill set could immediately make him a serious threat. Suggestions like Whittaker versus Reyes started circulating, while others argued that his tendency to struggle against taller opponents could still be an issue. Still, many believe this move could give Whittaker a fresh start and possibly open the door to a late career title run. Move on to another news. Daniel Cormier has shared high praise for both Arman and Ilia amid their ongoing tension in the lightweight division. Over the past few weeks, fans have watched a steady back and forth between the two contenders, with plenty of trash talk flying on social media. Arman has made it clear that he is frustrated about not receiving a title shot and feels he has been repeatedly overlooked. On the other side, Ilia has stated that he would never give Arman a title opportunity, pointing to the Islam Makhachev situation from nearly a year ago as the reason. Despite the drama, Daniel Cormier made it clear that he has nothing but respect for both fighters and fully expects them to clash at some point. Speaking in an interview with Red Corner MMA while in Thailand, DC praised Arman for staying active and continuing to build momentum. According to Cormier, Arman might be the best lightweight in the world now that Islam has left the division. He highlighted Arman's size, strength, and physicality, calling him a complete fighter who continues to improve every time he steps into the cage. Cormier didn't stop there. When talking about Ilia, DC was equally complimentary, calling him a tremendous champion. He explained that while there are many great fighters in the division, including names like Paddy Pimblett and Justin Gaethje, Arman and Ilia stand out above the rest. In DC's eyes, these two are not only elite in terms of skill, but they also have real tension between them, which makes the matchup even more compelling. He added that Arman looked especially impressive in his performance against Dan Hooker, further proving that he belongs at the very top. Praise for Ilia didn't end with Cormier. Former UFC champion Uriah Faber also shared his thoughts in a recent interview with the Schmo. Faber said that Ilia has the kind of power and skill set that could translate across multiple weight classes. He explained that moving up or down in weight always comes with trade-offs, like speed versus strength, but ultimately it comes down to technique, willpower, and fighting spirit. According to Faber, Ilia clearly has all three. Staying on the topic of Ilia, more footage has surfaced from his training sessions in Spain with Merab. This time, the two tested their punching power on the UFC machine. Ilia scored an impressive 28-0-1, while Merab followed closely with a score of 25-70, showing just how powerful both fighters really are. To cap things off, Ilia and Merab also shared a lighthearted moment on Christmas Day, calling Aljamain Sterling together to wish him a Merry Christmas. The exchange showed a relaxed, positive side of the fighters as they continue to prepare for what could be massive fights ahead. Move on to another news. Belal Muhammad has once again set his sights on a longtime rival, and this time his target is Colby Covington. Following a lengthy layoff from UFC competition, Belal recently returned to action outside of the octagon. He competed under the Real American Freestyle banner, where he faced elite opposition. Unfortunately for Belal, the outing ended in a loss, but the result hasn't slowed down his desire to compete or his hunger for big challenges. Rather than waiting around for a UFC booking, Belal has made it clear that he wants to stay active in any way possible. Competing in grappling and wrestling events has become his way of staying sharp, and he sees these opportunities as a chance to test himself against some of the best athletes in the world. In a recent YouTube video, Belal spoke openly about his mindset and why these competitions matter to him. Belal explained that even though he didn't get the win, going up against a top-level opponent was a valuable experience. He praised Real American Freestyle for putting on a high-quality show and emphasized that he genuinely loves competition. According to Belal, if he doesn't have a fight booked, he has no problem stepping into a grappling or wrestling match just to stay active. For him, it's about growth, consistency, and proving himself against elite talent. That's where Colby Covington enters the picture. Belal revealed that he has been calling out Colby since as far back as 2017, and that interest hasn't faded. However, this isn't about a UFC fight. Belal wants Covington under the Real American Freestyle rule set. He pointed out that Colby is scheduled to compete against Luke Rockhold in Miami this January, and depending on how things play out, Belal could be there waiting. Belal didn't hold back with his words. He referenced his recent opponent as one of the best in the world and said he performed well under the circumstances. Now, he believes a matchup with Colby would be another chance to prove a point. He even took a direct shot at Covington, labeling him as the trash of the division and suggesting that a wrestling-based matchup would expose him. Whether this potential clash ever comes together remains to be seen, but Belal's message is clear. He is not interested in sitting on the sidelines, he is not afraid of losses, and he is more than ready to compete against anyone, anywhere, as long as the challenge is real. Move on to another news. Sean O'Malley is once again making his case to be featured on the UFC White House card, and this time he's being very vocal about it. Sean believes that if he goes out and delivers a big performance against Song Yadong at UFC 324, his argument becomes completely valid. Just days ago, he already stated that he wants to be on the White House card, pointing out that there simply aren't many big names available. Now, on his most recent podcast, he doubled down and pleaded for a spot once again. As the UFC begins shaping the White House card heading into February, Sean believes there is a serious shortage of superstars, especially American ones. According to him, several of the promotion's biggest names are either unavailable or unlikely to compete on that card. He questioned who the UFC can realistically rely on, mentioning that Conor remains uncertain, John Jones doesn't sound likely, Ilia isn't expected, and Alex Pereira also appears to be out. With those names off the table, Sean feels the UFC doesn't have many true draws left. Sean openly acknowledged that he's coming off 2 losses, but he still considers himself a major name within the promotion. He explained that one strong performance could completely shift the narrative and remind everyone who he is. In his eyes, putting on an exciting fight is exactly what the White House card needs, especially with so many stars sitting on the sidelines. He also referenced comments made by Sean Strickland, who reportedly said he had no interest in attending the White House event. With multiple fighters seemingly ruling themselves out, O'Malley believes his inclusion makes more sense than ever. Even though some fans argue his star power has dipped since recent losses to Merab, the UFC still views him as a marketable figure. During the same podcast, Ceen took a moment to praise Tony Ferguson for his recent boxing performance. He spoke enthusiastically about how sharp Ferguson looked against a 2-0 professional boxer, saying Tony dominated the fight and looked years younger than his actual age. Sean especially loved the moment where Ferguson dropped his opponent and aggressively urged him to get back up, calling it classic Tony behavior. He also highlighted that Ferguson is now riding a small boxing win streak, calling it a great sight for fans. Finally, while touching on the bantamweight division, Bogdan Guskov shared his admiration for Petr Yan. He admitted his bias, but said he believes Yan would defeat Merab 10 out of 10 times. According to him, Yan's aggressive style, constant pressure, and ability to put on exciting fights make him one of the most entertaining fighters in the division. Move on to another news. A potential UFC main event may have just been leaked, and it involves a massive featherweight matchup. A few days ago, reports surfaced that Movsar Evloev versus Lerone Murphy was being discussed as the UFC London main event, scheduled for March 21st next year. At the time, it was treated as early talks. Now, things appear to be much further along. Earlier today, new information surfaced, suggesting that the contracts for this fight have officially been signed. MMA reporter Kevin Kay posted on social media, citing sources who claim that Evloev versus Murphy is locked in as the UFC London main event. According to the report, the bout is finalized, contracts are signed, and the matchup is set to headline the card in London. This development comes after both fighters publicly expressed frustration just weeks ago. When the UFC announced that Diego Lopez would be fighting Alexander Volkanovski in a title rematch, both Evloev and Murphy felt they had been passed over despite their impressive win streaks. Lerone Murphy reacted emotionally on social media, stating that missing the chance to fight one of the featherweight GOATs hurt the most. He added that the division no longer feels about merit, but rather about popularity. Movsar Evloev also responded to the title fight announcement, but he took a more direct approach. He publicly called out Murphy and proposed a #1 contender fight. Evloev stated that he was willing to give Murphy the opportunity to fight for the top contender spot and urged him to be ready to face him on the same card as the championship bout. If this leaked booking is accurate, it appears the UFC listened. By booking Evloev versus Murphy as the main event in London, the promotion would be setting up an official #1 contender fight in the featherweight division. The implications are huge. The winner of Diego Lopez versus Alexander Volkanovski would then be expected to face the winner of this matchup. What makes this fight even more compelling is the fact that both men are undefeated in the UFC. Each is riding a long and impressive win streak, built on consistency, discipline, and high-level performances. When they finally meet, one undefeated run will come to an end, and the division will gain a clear next title challenger. If confirmed, this matchup not only headlines UFC London, but also reshapes the featherweight title picture in a major way. Move on to another news. Merab is currently in Spain, spending time training with Ilia, and new footage from their sessions is quickly making the rounds online. This time, the two decided to test their power by hitting the UFC punching machine, giving fans a fun look at their competitive side outside of regular training. The clips show both fighters taking turns and putting some real force behind their strikes, clearly enjoying the moment while still keeping things intense. The energy between Merab and Ilia has been noticeably positive throughout their time together. Even while doing something as simple as testing the punching machine, both fighters looked sharp, relaxed, and confident. It's another reminder of how seriously they take preparation, even when the atmosphere is lighthearted. Merab also shared another clip that fans loved. In the video, Merab and Ilia are seen FaceTiming Aljamain Sterling to wish him a Merry Christmas. The call was filled with laughs and good vibes as they sent their holiday wishes to Aljo and his family. The exchange showed a more personal side of the fighters, highlighting the strong bonds that exist behind the scenes. During the call, both Merab and Ilia wished Aljo nothing but the best, keeping the mood upbeat and friendly. Moments like these give fans a rare look at the camaraderie between high-level fighters, especially during the holiday season. Adding to the lighthearted tone, one fan left a comment on a recent post featuring Merab and Ilia, joking that both of them were looking for a wife. Merab noticed the comment and responded with laughing and crying emojis, clearly taking the joke in stride and showing his sense of humor. Overall, the recent footage from Spain paints a clear picture. Merab and Ilia are not only putting in the work, but also enjoying the process, staying loose and keeping their spirits high. Between intense training, playful competition, and genuine friendships, both fighters continue to show why they remain some of the most likable personalities in the UFC.